Hello everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit. Some of you heard me say in my last video that I used to be a large woman. And that's true. I used to be large. When I was in my teens and into my early 20s, I was heavy. And the reason for my being heavy was I ate. I ate a lot. I overate. And I was sort of a compulsive binge eater, like emotional things. And I enjoyed eating as well, but I enjoyed eating a lot. I enjoyed it, but I would turn to food for everything. When I was angry and frustrated, I would turn to food. When I was happy, celebrating, I would turn to food. When I was sad, turn to food. When I was bored, I'd turn to, every reason I had, to turn to food. One of the few reasons I ever turned to food was for actual hunger, because I was never hungry because I was always eating. It's like I couldn't stop eating. It was definitely an obsessive compulsive disorder. Oh, there's a mosquito in here. Hang on. I'm going to try to get him. I haven't been overweight in a long time because that was back, I'm 50. I turned 50 last year. And when I was overweight, I started becoming overweight around age 12 or 13. Up until 12 or 13, I was, I was not skinny. I was never scrawny skinny, but I was, I was always thin and small, petite and everything. So then, I guess, that summer after 7th grade, I was still 12. And I guess that summer, I started, growing. You start growing up, you start developing, etc. So I was eating a lot too, I'll admit. I always ate a lot. Even when I was a little girl and I was thin, I would eat whatever I wanted. I would stuff my stomach till it was full, and, I never worried about anything. And I actually ate more. I ate more than I needed to, always. I felt like I wanted to keep shoving. Sort of a psychological thing. My mother said I did it even when I was a newborn, and I wanted to, was crying for food, and she would give me, and I would drink the whole bottle, and I'd cry for more, and I'd cry for more, and so finally she, said, no, there's something wrong. I'm not going to keep letting her eat, So, so that's how I always remember eating. I would just eat until I was full, and then even, when I was older, and then I would keep eating because I just wanted to feel fuller. It was just like my father's kind of that way too. My aunt, I guess it's something genetic. We have a little bit of obsessive compulsive thing, but it manifests itself in food. But the thing is with my father, he's never been overweight. He's always eaten like as much as he wants, and he just never gained weight. But my aunt has gotten obese. Now she's a little bit better. She's a little bit thinner, but anyway, I went off on a tangent. So, so I got, heavy that summer. For my height, I guess by then, that summer, I was about 5'2", and I weighed, but I wasn't developed at all. I didn't have, boobs or any womanly curves yet. But I think I weighed, I don't know, maybe 125 or 130. But for 5'2", that's actually overweight. I don't really remember what I weighed, but I just remember I looked, round. I wasn't obese, but I was, getting kind of round. And, my family started telling me, well, look, now you can't eat like you used to because now you're growing, and soon you're going to stop growing in height, because girls usually reach their maximum height by junior high. Maybe they'll grow another inch or two. Some girls develop much later and grow tall later, but usually girls around 13 or 14, I was 12 at the time, going on 13. Usually a girl is at about the height she's going to be. Maybe she'll grow another inch or two, and then she starts developing into a woman. And boys will probably, they grow later. They start getting taller later. But anyway, so, they were telling me, this is approximately the height you're going to be. My family was always very conscious about food and health and not eating too many fats and fried things. And, so they always, my mother particularly, always would try to encourage us to, watch our weight. And but I just couldn't stop. I just couldn't stop eating. And so what I would do instead, in front of them, I knew they would say something. So I would sneak food, and I would eat in hiding and it just got really weird. I was ashamed because I couldn't stop eating. I loved the feeling of being full and then shoving more and making myself fuller. And it never developed into, because there are cases, they're much worse, that develop into bulimia, where the girls then feel bad, girls and boys too. When I was young, we only knew of girls having that problem. But as it turns out, boys also develop that problem. But back then we thought it was only girls because of the pressure. And when I was young, the pressure to be thin was a lot, I have a feeling it was a lot worse than it is now. Because now you have that, whether you agree with it or not, you have the fat acceptance community. So there's sort of a support of, and some people are accepting overweightness more. Or at least saying you don't have to be ostracized from society, which I agree with that. Just because you're overweight doesn't mean that you should be ostracized from having a nice life and going out and enjoying life, whether you decide eventually to lose the weight or not. So I agree with that part of the fat acceptance movement. I don't necessarily agree with well, there are pros and cons to it, because definitely having a higher self-esteem might encourage you to treat yourself better and start eating healthier. So that's a good thing. But I don't, I don't know. There's some things about the fat acceptance way, what do you want to call it, the movement that I don't agree with, which is more the part about, I can eat whatever I want and I don't have to lose weight. And definitely you don't have to lose weight for other people, but I do think that everyone should, listen to me preaching, and here I am, I shove my face with candy every day, so I really can't talk, and I don't gain weight now I guess because I counteract it with a lot of vegetables and stuff, so maybe, I'm not sure why, but so I guess I really can't. But I don't think that we should encourage people not to try to be healthy. It's hard. I'm no role model for that as far as, the food, the eating, because I don't really make a high effort other than eating a lot of vegetables, which fill me up before I eat other foods. So that might help, but I still overeat candy. I'm still addicted to candy. Anyway, again on my tangent, but wait, I gotta regroup because I completely lost my train of thought now. I'll be right back. Okay, so basically that was it. So throughout high school, I struggled with eating, and I was gaining weight. Every year I was heavier. I wasn't growing taller anymore. And, I just couldn't. Maybe I would go on a diet and I'd lose a little, and I had the worst self-esteem, and I had pimples, and the boys didn't want to date me, or the boys that did want to date me were the geeks, so I would be. And you know, when you have low self-esteem, it's difficult because it's difficult to date because the what, of course, you have low self-esteem, you want to date the captain of the basketball team, or you know, someone popular. But those guys aren't going to look at you. They're going to be going for the cheerleaders that are clear skin and thin, and at least, you know, again, when I was young. So you would dream about dating those popular guys, but the guys that would actually be friends with you were the pimply, maybe the pimply guys that weren't so popular, that, you know, actually liked you as a person. They actually weren't that so interested in your physical beauty at necessarily. They might see beauty in you because you're their friend, and you know, whatever. So I would make guy friends. In high school it's easy to make guy friends. It's not so easy when you grow up. Those of you who are still in high school or college, hang on to those guy friends that you make back, because you will never find a guy friend again. At least the older you get, the less men are interested in friendships, in developing new friendships. So, and okay, so the thing is, perhaps you've heard of, and I'm not saying, well, you know, he was Groucho Marx, you know, it's really old, even before my time, but he would say, I think it was Groucho Marx, why would I want to be a member of a club that would accept me as a member? It's sort of, someone with such low self-esteem could not even possibly understand or fathom why a club, or in this case, a guy would like you. There must be something wrong with him. I'm so ugly, and I'm fat, and I'm pimply. If he likes me, there's definitely something wrong with him. So, so you wouldn't like the person, you know. So that's sort of what my situation was. Any guy who paid attention to me, he might even be, even though they were, most often they were geeky, but or overly shy. You know, maybe they were cute, but they were just like painfully shy. I remember there was one guy that was really cute. He was really handsome, but he was painfully shy. He had problem even talking to me. You know, we had met at a dance and we danced a little bit, and whatever. I guess, but yeah, that's basically what I thought to myself. I said, well, if he likes me, it's because he's weird and there's something wrong with him, and that's why he likes me, you know. I don't know. So it didn't really, I got really nervous about it because it was starting to, you know, that was like the first time a guy had really shown serious interest. I mean, there had been guys that had crushes on me, like friends, pimply friends and stuff, but and actually those guys, I'm friends with them on Facebook now. They got cute, now they're married, kids, you know. So you know, too bad I rejected them back when they, you know, because if I would have maybe hung on and one of them, you know, but whatever, it is what it is. It didn't work out. So, again, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, okay, so by the time I graduated high school, I was pretty heavy. I was I had reached my maximum height, 5'4", which is what I am now. I'm 5'4". And I think at that point I weighed like 150 pounds, which, you know, it's up there. It's, you know, and I have a small frame. I'm not big boned. Of course, when I was that side, I said, oh yeah, I have big bones, you know, but I don't have big bones. I'm very small boned. So 150 pounds on my frame looked much heavier than maybe someone else is 5'4" and weighs 150, but you know, her bone structure is larger or heavier, or maybe she works out. You know, muscle weighs more than fat, they say. So if you're a very physically fit person, you might weigh 150 pounds and it's mostly muscle, so that it looks fine. But on me, it looked really fat, and it was all in my boobs and in my stomach. I actually had big boobs back then, and yeah, a lot of it was the weight, obviously, but it was all boobs and stomach, and I had skinny legs because I've always had skinny legs and small hips. So when I was heavy, it was all upstairs. My face, my boobs, and my stomach, and I had a flat butt and skinny legs. So, but whatever, you know, partially it's easier to hide that weight when you have small hips and big stomach, it's a little bit easier to hide, and shoulder pads were in style back then. So that helps too. With a little bit of shoulder pads, it kind of makes you look like a V shape because you have a small hips, so it kind of helped a little bit. And yeah, obviously I would wear baggy things, and if I did it just right, or I put a belt like loosely on, it would sort of make people think I had a waist, which I still did have. Although the heavier I got, the less my waist could be seen. But so then college, and of course you go away from home, and you're eating, and pizza parties at midnight, and all that, and beer, even though it was underage drinking. Although I didn't drink that much in college, frankly. The few times I did, I got really, really plastered. But I didn't really drink much. But I ate a lot, and it was all you can eat food at the cafeteria. And just, I think it was nonstop eating for 4 years. It was just out of control. Oh my gosh. So by the time I graduated college, and yes, I had made some attempts in the interim to lose the weight, and I did sometimes maybe for the summer lose 10 pounds or 15 pounds, but it would come right back on because I would go back to my old habits, and I was so depressed. I just 8 years of my life, I was just, from all of high school, all of college, I hated my body. It was fat, and I was, on top of that, I was pimply up until my early 20s. I was fat, and I had a lot of pimples, and, and I just couldn't get it together, and didn't have a single boyfriend in all that time. Sometimes guys would show interest, but they wouldn't be, of course, the hot, popular guys that in my head thought were what I wanted. And so I didn't have any boyfriends or anything. And finally, after college, about a year after college, I said, okay, and I had met a man, an older man. He claimed he was 38. I think I was, at that stage, I was 20. I was 20 going on 20. Let's see, I graduated college, I was 20. Let's say about a year later, so maybe I was 21. I was just about 21. I don't think I was 22 yet. And I met a much older man. Things in my life, I got a job, this and that. It turned out he was married, but I didn't know it at the time. Innocence, it's... But he claimed that he was separated and he was getting a divorce, but he was just, it was taking some time, but that if I would just be patient, So, of course, we would be meeting, but it was sort of like he was hiding me. But when you're young, you believe everything the guy tells you. And especially me, I'd never had a boyfriend before. So I didn't really know. Of course, I'd heard how men would lie and stuff. But I don't know. Until it happens to you, you really don't believe it. You don't really know. So yeah, he was always hiding me. I would never see him on Saturdays or weekends, which is when it would seem. That's why I always say the first sign that something's not right is if a guy won't take you out weekends. If for some reason he can never see you, it's always some excuse that he can't see you on a weekend. I mean, it's like, for me, that's every single time a guy just, for whatever reason, it's always some excuse. He can never see me on a weekend. It's because he's got another woman, or he's married, or, you're not his one and only. So, but, anyway, that I found out much later that he was married. A few months after we met, I found out he was married. It was too late. I'd already given myself to him and everything, but whatever. It was a learning experience. But anyway, in that time after I met him, and he met me when I was pimply and fat and had low self-esteem. So, and he claimed he was 38. I was 21. I think he was older in hindsight. I think he lied about his age, but, and of course, he swept me off my feet. He was very handsome. He was physically fit. He was, He knew the things to say and whatever. He swept me off my feet, at least in the beginning. And I got this drive to lose the weight. So that's the one good thing, that in spite of the pain I went through afterwards, emotionally, it at least inspired me, because I thought he was so handsome and he was so beautiful. I said, what could he possibly see in me? I must be something special. He must see something special in me, and it really, in that case, even though it turned out he was just a user and he just wanted whatever, have some fun with a young girl, it did help me at least get on track to losing the weights, because I wanted to look pretty for him. So I went to a diet doctor, and did the weekly weigh-in, and the doctor told me what to eat. It wasn't anything too crazy. It was just, here, this week you're gonna eat this, and he'd give me the menu for the week, and it said, steamed chicken and boiled vegetables and, just this boring stuff. And he said, if you need a little flavor, you're allowed to have a tablespoon of oil per day. I remember that. He said, you have to have fats, not greasy, a lot of fat, but you do need a little bit of fat, which is what the tablespoon of oil. Actually, I think it was 2 tablespoons of oil that I was allowed. And he said, it's not only that you're allowed to eat these things that I'm giving you on the menu, you must eat them, he said, because you must have the complete, nutrition. Back then I wasn't a vegetarian, so I ate a lot of chicken. I remember a lot of steamed chicken, occasionally some steamed fish, or if I wanted to use the oil, the 2 tablespoons of oil, I could use them however I wanted. So if I wanted to cook my food in it, I could do that. If I wanted to use 1 tablespoon for salad dressing, I could do that. But I had to, whatever I did, I had to use only 2 tablespoons. 2 breadsticks a day, I remember, was also just 2 bread. But it was filling. It was boring food, but I ate it, and I didn't feel hungry. But it was just a boring diet. I mean, I couldn't eat, ice cream and cake and cookies and all that stuff. I was allowed to have some fruit, so that was my sweetness. But for some reason, I loved this man so much. I was impassioned with him, all these new experiences that I was feeling in my heart and in my body. And so it really gave me the boost I needed to really focus and lose the weight. And so let's say I was I was almost 170, which was considered obese. Actually, I went to get one of those body mass index, and I came out as obese, not morbidly obese, but I was like in the obese range already for my frame and my height and all that. So, when I was with him, until I found out he was married. But the thing is, how many months was that? Let's say 6 months. I don't know. It wasn't a year even. Let's say it was about 6 months. But in those 6 months, I think I lost 20 pounds. Let me see. Maybe I was down to 140. No, maybe I lost 30. Or at least 20. I lost at least 20 pounds. The dog wants to go out. Hang on. Oh, and another thing I did, I remember in those 6 months, I was going to aerobics class. Aerobics dance was really popular. It was a little after, there was a movie called Flashdance, and there was another movie at the time back in the 80s called Perfect, with John Travolta and I can't remember the name of the lady. Not super, I mean, I think Flashdance was very successful. The other movie, Perfect, didn't get really great reviews, and it's kind of like, it was a bad movie after all. But, when you're young, it's cool. And Jamie Lee Curtis, she was so cool. She was like the coolest actress. Like a lot of us wanted to be like her. Because she was kind of masculine. She's kind of a tomboy, but she was very beautiful. So that was kind of a thing that we liked. I say my friends and I wanted to emulate a little bit, But, So she was an aerobic instructor in that movie. And Flashdance was about a girl who, it wasn't aerobics dance, she was actually a dancer that she, she was young and she wanted to make it big. But even though it was a different kind of dance, still aerobics dance was really, we would dress like the girl in Flashdance and go to aerobics class and jumping around, and it was fun. And I still enjoy aerobics. I like dancing. So that's the thing. If you're going to exercise, you've got to do something you enjoy, because for it's hard. I mean, if you like to walk, I love to walk. I love to dance and I love to walk. And those are my two go-to exercises. Because if you jog, let's say you hate jogging, I mean, you've got to be willing to get your cardio up a little. And of course, doctor with it, especially if you're my age, because I need to do exercise now, and I'm thinking about going back. And I was doing the swimming, but swimming is not fun. Swimming laps, I might go to aerobics class. But anyway, so I was eating really healthy, low fats. I was doing aerobics. I had the doctor controlling, making sure, I got weighed every week. And so I was losing, and I was inspired by this. He never asked me to lose weight. He at least appeared to like me for myself. As it turned out, who knows? That the problem with those things, when you have a bad experience like that, you never know if the guy really cared about you. So I'll never know if it was just a fling for him, or even though it lasted a few months, he was always hiding me, and we could never go, we would go out in public, but never, it was never like, you could tell he was like hiding. So I guess he was, he really was married and not getting separated. And of course he denied it at the end, when I found out, but it was over. I left. And what was I going to say? All right, so I lost the weight. And, whatever, got over the pain of the breakup with this guy, but the weight stayed off. I think I was down to 140 approximately, give or take, from 170, which isn't bad. Yeah. I lost all that weight in just a few. It had to have been longer than 6 months then, because to lose 30 pounds. Well, the first month, I think maybe 10 pounds came off right away, because you usually in the beginning you lose a lot right away, because your body, burns fat quicker the heavier you are. And as you start getting closer to your goal and you have less fat to lose, you start losing slower. So it could be that I lost the 30 pounds in the 6 months. That's about 2 pounds a week. Let's say I lost 10 in the first month, just from, water weight, and then after that, let's say I lost 2 pounds a week, because I was losing steadily. Yeah, it's realistic. I could have lost 30. It was so long ago, I don't even remember, but. So I remember getting down to 140, and just looking at my body, you could see that I had slimmed down. 140 was not my ideal weight, but it looked better. My ideal weight actually is about 120, 125, so I wasn't too far, But then those last 15, I didn't lose those yet. I I don't know, and then I started kind of eating whatever I wanted after that. And I never gained it back. So the doctor, it was a Haitian man, I remember. And he said to me, he's dead now, he's passed away. This was 30 years ago. The guy told me that the diet he was giving me was going to change my metabolism. According to him, it was going to cause some sort of reaction between the foods, and it was going to, so who knows? I mean, he was from Haiti. I mean, there is probably some, I've read not only from him, I've read since that time that there is something like that exists, where the chemical reaction of the foods, that's why he told me you had to eat every single thing that he put on this diet plan. You can't skip. Like if you're not hungry for the apple because you're full, force yourself to eat the apple at some point during the day because you have to eat everything for it to work, he said. And also so that your body doesn't go into starvation mode, because if you eat too little, your body tries to preserve itself, to preserve your life, because it thinks that you're starving if you don't eat enough. So then it kind of, your metabolism gets slower so that you won't burn so I think that had something to do with it too, which is why he said you had to eat the oils and everything. And then all the vegetables, that was the other thing, unlimited vegetables. Like vegetables, but the light vegetables. Not, again, let's not confuse potatoes, potatoes, sweet potatoes, those things, those are carbohydrates. Perhaps they're considered vegetables, but those aren't fattening vegetables. If any of you is going to even try it on your own. The vegetables that he was talking about was lettuce, celery. I think even carrots can, they're not very fattening, but they've got more calories than a lot of the green vegetables. But free kale and any of those boring vegetables, unfortunately. And I actually learned to love those vegetables, and now that's what I do before I eat any meal. I just sit down with a big plate of vegetables and a bottle of seltzer water. I like soda, club soda, and I just drink that, and I get so full. It packs your stomach, so then you're not hungry. And then you can, if you want to eat, you can eat a little something else, but usually you don't have a lot of room left. So, and especially with me, that I like to eat until my stomach is stretched to the max, because I still actually do like to do that. But now, instead of filling myself with fattening things, I fill myself up with vegetables, so I get that uncomfortable fullness, and then I might eat something else, but then it turns out the portion is not so big because there's not much room left. So and the club soda has all those bubbles, so that fills you up too. And then over the years, I just was losing. I didn't even try after that. I was 140, and then I moved to Washington, D.C. after that, after, break up with the guy. And I'd always thought I wanted to move to D.C. anyway. Was curious, and I was 22 by then. And I thought, oh, this is cool. I could move to Washington, D.C. like I'd always thought of doing. In college I'd visited a few times, and I liked it. And so I moved to Washington, D.C. And I just didn't gain weight anymore. I just was eating sort of healthy, but I didn't go overboard being too careful. And I just didn't gain weight. And then, like, a year went by. I never weighed myself much. And then one day I weighed myself, and I was like 130 pounds. I was like, what happened? I hadn't dieted or anything. And I don't think I lost it, boom, like, I don't think I lost it suddenly. I think I just was losing weight over time. And of course, I was in the city. When you live in a big city, you walk a lot. And me, I always have taken public transportation. I've always enjoyed taking public transportation better than driving to work. For the cost, mainly. I've always been a little bit tight on the costs of cars and gas and all that. And so I would walk to work, because I was living in a place where work was nearby. So I walked to work and I walked home. It was, maybe 20 blocks, which I didn't think was a lot. No more than 20 blocks. And so you think 20 blocks there, 20 blocks home, I would, in the morning it was, or sometimes I would take the bus in the morning if I was running late. But even so, you got to walk to the bus stop, or even to get on the train, you're moving more. The train has escalators, you go up and down. So maybe, I'm guessing, I didn't notice it, and suddenly I weighed myself one day and I had lost the weight over time. So then I was down to 130, and then so I was 130 for many years. And that was a weight that was a little, and believe it or not, that was already, it wasn't my ideal weight, but it was pretty good for my height, 5'4", and my small frame. But believe it or not, there were guys that told me I needed to lose weight, which at that point it would be more for the aesthetics of it. The men, at least that was the 80s. You really, there, the fat acceptance still wasn't. I think there were some BBW clubs, and the term BBW came out. It was, so it was the beginning, but that was sort of, it was still not a thing. And I wasn't a BBW anymore anyway. I was a regular. I wasn't thin and I wasn't heavy. I was sort of just in the middle. But yeah, and I did get more dates, more guys showing interest. I don't know if maybe it was because I was in the city, but my self-esteem went up. I still had bad skin. That's true, in my early 20s. But I was thinner, so, and you could cover it with makeup, and if you have pimples. And but then my skin did start to clear up, because then I went on a campaign to get my skin under control. I still have some. I don't have breakouts anymore, but I have small pores, and they get a lot of impurities in them, so that I don't sound vulgar. You know what impurities in your pores are. You know what they are, but they're hideous. So I had them cleaned, and I would get facials twice a month, and I was actually the product that did the most for my skin, because I have very oily skin now, but it's dehydrated because I'm older, so it's not as noticeable. But I had very oily skin, and I started using salicylic acid, which is just an over-the-counter product, and it's cheap, because you've got all these acne products which work probably, but they're so expensive. And if you look on it, they all have salicylic acid. That's the secret. So you can get this alcohol, this green alcohol. You've seen it. It's like wintergreen alcohol, it's called. It's in the alcohol section of your CVS or your Walgreens. It's a bottle of green, so it smells kind of minty because it has eucalyptus in there, I think. And actually I have a bottle now because I still use it today, not on my face anymore. I use it to clean my ears now. It's isopropyl. I have it right here. Can you hear it? I'm not going to let myself be on camera. It's 70% rubbing alcohol. Isopropyl rubbing alcohol with wintergreen and glycerin. And it says inactive ingredients, methyl salicylate. But the methyl salicylate, that's salicylic acid, kills pimples. It kills bacteria, kills pimples. Keep it out of your eyes. But I would do this, and I'm not a doctor, and but it worked for me. And if you look at that Proactive, there's this product on the market that's very good, and it works. It's called Proactive Solution. That's what you got there in the Proactive. It's salicylic acid, but you're paying a lot more, and it works. But anyway, so that's how I cleared up my skin. But we're talking about weight here. Oh, and yes, so the guys, 2 or 3 guys that I dated told me I had love handles, I needed to lose weight. And I was like, F you. And at that point I did have a little bit better self-esteem, so it didn't hurt me, because I would get teased back in, well, in college, not so much because I went to all women's college. And in high school, I didn't get teased too much. But when I gained weight, that summer when I went to a new school back in the 8th grade, I got teased a lot. And I did get teased a little bit in high school, but it wasn't so bad. It was a Catholic high school, and we're taught that you have to treat others nicely, the way you want to be treated, and love your enemy and all this. So whether you agree with religion or not, it does keep the bullying under control when you go to a Catholic school, because we're all raised with similar morals, or even, as I've mentioned, my family was not very devout or religious, but you sort of can't escape some of the teachings, even if you really want to, because if her family, my mother came from a pretty devout family, they were, she was raised in that environment, and in a very Catholic environment, all the neighbors, you kind of can't escape. You're going to get some of those morals into your upbringing, even if you're an agnostic or an atheist. So anyway, so you know, there was a little bullying in high school, but it wasn't too bad. But what I suffered mainly was just not being popular, which is what a lot of kids suffer from. A few kids are popular in high school. So, and now looking back, I'm friends with all the people that I wasn't friends with in high school because they were popular and I couldn't touch them, and now we're all friends on Facebook. And that popularity thing is like kind of gone. Plus, the girls that were really popular are now, some of them are fatter than I am and older looking, and they've had a few kids. I'm not judging them, but when you've had a baby, your body doesn't always recover physically. Your stomach stretches a bit and whatever. So, and I'm not saying that's good. I never had kids. I'm sure I missed out on a beautiful thing, having my own children. But the one positive side is that my stomach is pretty tight. It's firm, and I don't have like saggy skin in my stomach. I've got it elsewhere, but my stomach stays. So, and I didn't, apparently some women, it happened with my cousins for sure, they were all thin, and after they had babies, they all got fat. So something happened to their hormones. And I'm not saying being fat is bad, but, in the Argentine culture, they're very, or the culture, it still does value the older perception of beauty, which is thin, tall, usually blonde, blue-eyed, but not necessarily as much anymore. But Argentine culture still does value blue eyes and blonde hair. It's not right, and I don't certainly agree with that, but that's what it is. So in my culture, the problem with me is in Argentina, I'm old. I look old. I'm obviously not. If you're over 30, you're just already treated like an old person in Argentina. You got to really struggle to try to look younger, and then they get a lot of plastic surgery in Argentina because there's a lot of pressure to look young and blonde and thin, and it's not healthy. I'm thank goodness I live in the U.S. and not in Argentina. I did live there for many years, but fat acceptance, maybe now it's a thing down there, but it certainly wasn't when I was living there. I was kind of bringing it to my stepdaughters. They're not fat, but one of them was a little bit rounder just by nature. And I was, she would come home crying sometimes because all her friends were thin, and she happened to have large hips, and even if she were skinny as a rail, she would still have large hips because that's just how her body came out, with big, round, beautiful hips. But in the Argentine culture, it's not necessarily. So yeah, I thank goodness now we have the role models today of beautiful women with larger hips and are considered beautiful, and they're famous. So I'm not going to say any names, but you pick anyone. There's several. Even Cindy Crawford, she was a little ahead of the times because Cindy Crawford was very famous when I was, in the 80s and 90s. She was considered too heavy for a supermodel in those days, and look how successful she ended up being. And she even wasn't heavy. But she definitely was one of the models that had more fuller hips, because until Cindy Crawford, they all had had to look like boys. No chest, no boob, no butt, no hips. very skinny. And then Cindy Crawford came out, suddenly was famous, and just one of the most beautiful women, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful women ever to have existed, in my opinion. There are others that I also believe are the most beautiful women to ever existed, but from my time period, Cindy Crawford was really just, she just knocked everyone away. She blew everyone away. And she came out there with her hips, and she said she was even told that she would never be a model when she was thinking about going into modeling because her hips were too big. Yeah, you're pretty, you're tall, you've got a lot of qualities, but your hips are too big. You'll never make it in the industry, is what some of the casting agents told her, the modeling agencies told her. But, that's why, so self-esteem is very important, because if you were to listen to every criticism that every person ever said to you, you would never be able to do anything. So so that's what I used. I used Cindy Crawford as an example to my stepdaughter, and there were others, other. Fortunately, as I said, now we have plenty of women of all different body types that are considered beautiful. So it's a little easier to find examples for your girls. But when I was little, there were no examples of not perfect women that were considered beautiful. Anyway, yeah, so now I'm thin. Later in life, I did develop hypothyroidism. Hypo means my thyroid is very slow, and I have to take a little bit of thyroxine. So that does affects my weight. The thyroxine probably helps keep my weight down. But I don't take much. I take a few milligrams a day, just so that because if I don't treat it, I think it could develop into thyroid cancer or something like that. I don't remember. I gotta go to the doctor and have it checked. I haven't had it checked in over a year, but yeah, no, thank goodness I didn't develop an eating disorder, because the way my self-esteem was back in high school and college, I was at high risk of developing an eating disorder. I mean, it is, and it was slightly disordered because I overate and I binged, and I still binge on candy now, but I don't gain weight. But it never developed beyond the binge point. There were girls that then go on to purge because they binged and they feel bad, and it becomes a vicious cycle. And thank goodness it never turned into that for me. But honestly, I just was feeling so horrible about myself. Sometimes I wished that I could, but I couldn't bring myself to do the purging. You've got to really, really, I guess I'm thinking, if I, feeling as low as I did in those days, couldn't bring myself to do it, I imagine the girls that actually fall into that very life-threatening behavior, they must be feeling a million times worse than me, because I just, I did try to do it like once or twice. I think I tried, because I was feeling and I just wanted to be thin so desperately, but I couldn't control my eating, and I just couldn't do it. It felt, horrible, and, So I thank goodness, did not ever go through with that part of it. So yeah, I wish I had a more, dramatic story for you about how I lost weight, but it was just with some exercise, a little bit of controlling what I ate, and then luck. Part of it was luck, maybe, what the doctor told me, because my aunt also went on to the same doctor, did a similar diet. The doctor supposedly tailored the diets to each individual, and she lost weight too, but she ended up gaining it back after she started eating normally again. So part of it is luck as well, and apparently my family has a faster metabolism. My father has never been overweight, and he he nonstop eats. Sometimes everyone is like, where is it? Where does it go? So that's my story. If you have any questions or want me to expand upon anything I've spoken about, let me know. Bye. Thanks for listening.